be seated. Thank you. HOD, you are under your previous oath. Counsel.
Thank you, Justice Masaneki. Dr. Kanoshi, were you able to look more closely into that discrepancy? Before you answer, let me just also say that it's not my intention to be persnickety. The numbers are important. Each one represents a life, or rather a death. So it's for that reason that I'm probing the accuracy of the table.
Understand, Counsel.
Were you able to reconcile those two names?
Yes, Counsel. We've looked at the two names that appear on the list. Their surnames are spelled differently, and their ID numbers are also different. And that's why I think using our Excel spreadsheet system, they are regarded as two different people. But I would like to say that after this process, they will be checked again. So there will be a process of relooking not only at the names on the list, but also welcoming any new names, Counsel, that you mentioned. I think that you have other names. That we will going to look at them, and with our teams and your team as well, and recheck the list. I should say also that the list took time to develop and to go back into history of last year, what happened, and by a team including data capturers. And we are open to having the list. Actually, we intend having the lists, all the lists, audited. So we will have an independent audit process for all these figures, maybe during this ADR process.
That would be very helpful. And if we could, the parties remain in touch as to one person to speak to in order to provide the information, we will gladly cooperate.
Okay.
On that discrepancy, even though the ID numbers are different, would you agree it appears to be a typo, and that's why the ID numbers are different, because the date of birth and the date of death of the both are the same, and place of death as well, same.
It could be possible, possible, Counsel.
But, Counsel, I guess you're going to get there. But does that affect the gross number you gave us? I guess it would. I mean, does it affect the 23? You might get there at some stage. Are you going to get there? In short, I'm asking, is the 141 number, assuming for the moment these are different people, will that number still be good?
Justice, the numbers of last year took time to develop without accurate documents in a lot of cases. And I think that's the process that I think the 118, we are open to have it audited. And also we would work with all parties to ensure that we agree on that number. The 23 of this year, we are even more confident of its accuracy, but I think we would subject the figures to the same process. I'm not against subjecting the figures to the same process.
I understand that, but preliminarily, if 23 is good and 118 subject to audit, yes, then we're looking at 141 lives, are we?
Yes.
Or deaths, if you want.
Yes.
Okay. Proceed, Counsel.
Yes, yes, Justice.
Thank you, Justice Masaneki. So we'll use 141 as the working number for now, because I want to stick with this theme of numbers.
Yes.
It's in relation to the inquests and the post-mortem reports and so on. Let me begin by referring you to a report that was handed over to you, to the Gauteng Department by the Director General of Health in the National Department. It was as a result of her investigation and her team into the deaths and tracing. It's called Report on Tracing of the Deceased from Life Esidimeni. Are you aware of that report?
I'm not in a position of the report at the moment, but I am aware of the report.
You'll find it in the record
Okay.
at page 3733, file 11.
Well, somebody should bring the file to the witness, please, or help Dr. Kinosi to find it.
Yeah, if somebody can find it for me. Otherwise, they're going to collapse. Thank you.
Inkosi Ntombi.
Yes.
Have you seen this report before?
Yes, Councillor, I've seen the report.
The DG informed us yesterday that from the National Department side, this investigation, it's wrapped up from their side. There's obviously more work to be done, and that it's now under the control of your department. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct, Councillor.
And there's some startling information in this report, and I'd like to refer you to a part of the report that will have an impact on the numbers and the ability to do proper inquests or not. So if you could please turn to page 3735.
Yes, yes, Councillor.
You'll see there are three names, 1, 2, 3, in the middle of the page. Of three bodies that were moved from Put You to Rest. Do you see that? To Cotello, and then moved yet again to Royal Funeral Parlor. And that they were buried as destitute. That's in below the three names. It says, at this funeral parlor, we confirm that the three patients above were buried as destitute. And then it goes on to say, they were buried as destitute with the authorization from Tshwane municipality. And they name the person who is director of urban management who provided that authorization. And then it says, with the concurrence of Precious Angel NGO, Ms. Ethel Jeannie Mkube, who signed as a member of family in the documents. Do you know Ms. Mkube? Do you know who she is in these events?
Council, Justice, I know the name of Ms. Ethel Ngube. I have never met her, but I know her as the owner of Precious Angel NGOs, because I think it had two separate premises of Precious Angels. It was not one house.
Have you been able to establish why she signed as a member of the family?
No, I wouldn't know why a council, why she would sign as member of council last year when these three were buried. I wouldn't.
Are you investigating this report further? Have you taken the findings from this report and identified avenues of further investigation?
Council, we have given all documents in our possession to the SAPS as well as the SIU, who are investigating on behalf of government. So we have put all our trust in and we cooperate with them in all investigations.
So, and are you working with them to provide further information?
Well, all information that they need, we provide, not only myself, but other officials within the department, that information that we have.
And you're saying their terms of reference include following up on this particular report?
They are following on all NGOs that were cited as well. So they are not only investigating matters within the department, but also matters within NGOs in general.
My question is a bit more specific. It's whether they are investigating the matters that arise from this report.
The council, the documents have been given to them, and I'm assuming that they would, and we will continue to follow up with them how far they are with each investigation. I would not be able to say whether they've looked at this report already and how far they are with the report.
I'm asking the question, Dr. Kanoshi, because the Director General said to us it's now in the hands of the Gauteng Department, yes, and that it's most certainly not the end of the investigation and that the department is going to be taking it further. That's the reason why I'm asking you the question. Your answer to me is that you've handed it over to other state entities, yes, and now it's with them. But you're not sure whether they're actually investigating this particular aspect. And the concern is that it might fall in the cracks, again, as we've seen with many things in this process. What will you do to ensure that this report is followed up?
Council, SIU have been involved only since last month, period of a month now, roughly, or less. And we've been handing them reports. We've handed them lots of reports, and we hand them more as they need. So the process has only now started, if I may say, and we continue to engage with them through not only myself, but also our legal unit. We've got a legal services unit within the department who engage with them on a regular basis. But are also engaged with them as well. So we will ensure that all investigations that they do, first of all, we cooperate, but also get the progress on where they are on each one of the cases that they're investigating.
And will you ensure that this report specifically is part of their investigations, and that it's and that updates are provided to you?
Yes, Council, and yes, Justice. I'll make sure that it is included, that in their closer investigations.
Thank you, Dr. Kanoshi. The second reason why this is relevant is it relates to the SAPS and the inquests in the absence of post-mortem reports. You've said that there are 26 post-mortems that have been conducted. Is that correct? Or did
yes.
I hear you incorrectly?
I have a figure of 26.
26?
Yes.
26 of the 100 and, well, now 141.
Yes.
And 35 docket.
I'm sorry, Council, before you go there, I thought the new 23, actually, there are post-mortem reports. Because those are well post the Ombuds report.
It is Justice. It's not every case that it's not in each case that a post-mortem is done, because we need to obtain approval from the family, and we have cases where the family refused post-mortem, and we also have for various reasons, including some of them wanting to bury quite early. And so it's not each and every case where even including the 23, where a post-mortem was done. But a post-mortem gets offered in a way. The SAPS also have a view in the case of a clearly unnatural death, I think, and it's declared as such, and the person is in the hands of forensic pathology services, the postmortems become compulsory. But I think in this case, because they have allowed burials without postmortems, it is the SAPS, I'm assuming that they don't regard each and every case in the same way as that. So it is not, short answer is that it's not all cases that a post-mortem was done.
Yeah, the shorter question was, are there post-mortem reports for the 23, or 26 relates to 141? That was Council's question, which I followed up on. So 26 is out of total deaths.
Of 141,
Yeah.
Yes, Justice, is true.
Okay.
Dr. Konoshi, you say that you are cooperating with the SAPS in the process of the inquests.
Yes, not only myself, but they often need the assistance of various other managers within the department with whom I work. Yes.
How will the inquest be, how will it be possible for a full inquest hearing to take place if there are only 26 post-mortem reports?
Council, yes.
Or maybe you can clarify for us whether the inquest is only into those 26.
Council, as far as I am concerned, we've handed the list, the total list of all those who passed on to the SAPS, and I am not sure which ones they will decide to hold an inquest with. I was under the personal impression that the inquest would be arranged or discussed with the NPA for each and every case, and the decision would be made at that level. So it is not up to the Department of Health to decide which cases we should have an inquest and which ones should not. We leave it to the SAPS and justice system to decide. I am not sure whether they would need a post-mortem in every inquest or whether an inquest can be held without a post-mortem, but I think the SAPS will decide. And that's why I said earlier, the question of those who have not had post-mortems done because they passed on last year and even before this matter became public, whether they would still want to apply for exhumation or not. I think that we would leave to both this process, the ADR process, and also the SAPS and NPA to decide.
You see, I think that it's going to be utterly crucial that you work with the SAPS, because I think they need more information from you rather than just handing it over to them and leave it to them. And the reason I say that is because these deaths, in a number of cases, are marked as natural causes. And the post-mortem and inquest takes place in relation to deaths in state custody of unnatural causes.
I agree, Council. We do cooperate with them and will continue to cooperate with
Let
them.
me take the point a little further, and I'll ask you a further question. If you could please turn to page 1111, 1111, and it's in file 3.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fine.
Have you found the record?
I have found a record, Council.
So what appears there is a letter from the legal representatives for some of the family members, section 27, and it's dated 16 September 2016. And the subject of this correspondence is urgent request for referral to judicial inquest. Do you see that?
I can see that,
If you
Council.
can turn over then to page 1113. And just for the record, I'm going to read the paragraph, the relevant parts of the correspondence, and I'm going to begin at paragraph 13.
Okay.
It says, as these deaths all follow the decision of the department to discharge users from Life Esidimeni, and they have all occurred since the discharge of these users between 1 March 2016 and 30 June 2016, our clients believe that there is a clear connection between these multiple deaths. Moreover, the high number of deaths that have occurred in recent months suggests that they were likely due to unnatural causes. We request that you take the measures set out in Section 3 of the Inquest Act in regard to all deaths occurring amongst former residents of Life Esidimeni who were removed from Life Esidimeni as a result of the department's decision to terminate its contract with the facility. This includes mental health care users transferred to NGOs and other facilities after the closure of Life Esidimeni, as well as those discharged to the care of their families. We further request that the inquest be conducted in terms of Section 6A of the Inquests Act, which allows for a joint inquest into multiple connected deaths. Then says, this matter is inherently urgent due to the need to conduct post-mortem examinations before the burial or cremation of the deceased, as well as to the ongoing danger to the health and safety of other people who have been removed from Life Esidimeni. It may be necessary, depending on the outcome of the judicial inquest, to take steps to protect the other mental health care users discharged from Life Esidimeni from similar harm. This was addressed to the SAPS on 16 September 2016. I just want to refer you then to the response. If you could bear with me for a moment. Sorry, Dr. Kanoshi, the other relevant part of this letter is in paragraph 6. It's actually what prompted this letter. At paragraph 6, it's recorded that the clients represented here were advised by the SAPS that the report of the death, paragraph 6, report of the death must be directed to the Department of Social Development or the Department of Health for their investigation, and that it would be open to them to refer the matter for criminal investigation if they suspected foul play. My concern is that if you are not involved, and if you don't put the motivation for the investigation into the investigation into all of the deaths that took place, that there will not be a full and proper inquest into the deaths. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, Council. We, at least I was not aware of this letter because it was addressed from Section 27 to SAPS. We do, I think since I wouldn't hazard the date, but definitely since the Ombudsman's report referred all the deaths to SAPS even before we saw this letter. And SAPS also decide based on the clinical picture whether to enforce a post-mortem or to allow family to decide. But we do work with SAPS, and we will cooperate with them as we have been on all cases, with a view to inquest being held either individually or a collective inquest, as you prefer, at a date not known to us now.
Do you think that the clinical picture, as you say, is evident from the documents that you've provided to SAPS? Is it apparent from the documents, the clinical? If the decision that SAPS is going to make as to whether to conduct inquests into the deaths, if that decision is based on the clinical picture, is it your view that that clinical picture is apparent from the documents that have been provided to the SAPS?
Council, on the ones that I have seen, the copies of clinical records that I have seen, quite a number of them, especially those who passed on in our hospitals, the clinical picture is quite clear. And the doctors have written their own professional opinion in them as well. So I can vouch for those that passed on in our state hospitals. I cannot do the same for those who passed on in NGOs, unfortunately.
Okay, let's start with the ones that passed on in the hospitals. Is it not correct that the cause of death is recorded as natural, or natural causes?
Yes, it is recorded as such, and you would have seen that in a lot of cases it's written as provisional cause of death.
So, in the absence of further information, of an explanation for why a death might be recorded as of natural causes, but that the circumstances that gave rise to death by cold or pneumonia is the real issue at play. If in the absence of that, they don't actually have the full clinical picture. Am I right?
Council, I think that is why we have taken the view that all the deaths should be subjected to an inquest process to determine exactly that. We would provide all necessary information that may be in our possession to assist the inquest process.
But you won't provide any information in relation to the deaths at NGOs? Because you said that you don't have.
Yeah, the ones that we don't have, and but that doesn't mean that the circumstances are not being investigated. And we hope the police would also assist in getting information. The information that we have about some of the NGOs we have shared with the SAPS, and not all cases do we have information.
What steps are you taking to get more information in relation to the deaths that took place at the NGOs? And for example, the 3 names I referred to earlier, the 3 people who were given a pauper's burial. What are you doing about that? Well, what happens with them from now on, in your view?
Council, you would remember that quite a number of NGOs were shut down, and patients moved immediately, even before the Ombudsman's report was released on the 1st of February. It was done by the department. I think it was after the officials of the department went to those NGOs and found them in a state where patients were regarded as not being safe. There hasn't been any further steps after closing down of those NGOs taken against the NGOs themselves, except to share information with the SAPS.
My question wasn't in relation to steps that are being taken against the NGOs. That is a separate subject. The question is, the page, I referred you to the report by the Director General,
Yes.
and I referred you to, for example, 3 people who have been given a pauper's burial and
Yes.
who are, where it's confirmed that they died, they fall within the scope of this inquiry.
Yes.
So Sarafina Ndlovu, Christine Herbst, and Josiah Butinyana Mukhmotsi. What about them? That's my question, is how do we find out the cause of death and whether they are going to be part of the inquest? What are you doing to ensure that they are part of the inquest?
Council, there are no clinical records available to us, and no post-mortem was done before they were given the kind of burial that they received. So we do not have any information about the patient, about the patients, but we, like I say, we don't have any other information except what we did as a department, that is, by closing the NGO, but also we've handed all information, even about the list of those who passed on and where they passed on, to the SAPS to investigate further. We haven't done any further investigation.
You know,
over and above that.
the charge that counsel is making to you
Okay.
through a series of questions is the following. She's saying there isn't enough information here,
Yes.
and you as a department haven't done enough to ensure that there will be post-mortems as the law requires. Remember, their deaths, they are unlawful, admittedly unlawful, admittedly as a result of reckless and negligent conduct. Inquests ordinarily must follow. What counsel is putting to you is have you as a department done enough to place the police in a position where post-mortems can be conducted? I mean, that requires a response, I think. And she takes you to the letter where they asked a year ago, please conduct post-mortem examinations. Nothing virtually comes back. And you look at the schedules, you have to tell us whether they are sufficient for post-mortem examinations and or inquests to ensue.
Okay. Justice, I'll attempt to answer and counsel, I'll attempt to answer the question as best as I can. First of all, the letter of Section 27 was not copied according to the letter to the Gauteng Department of Health, so I'm not sure whether it was, the department was made aware in September last year of this letter addressed to the SAPS, number one. But the question of post-mortems of those who passed on in NGOs has been discussed within our meetings with the SAPS. We as a department did not want to make the decision, and I don't think we should make the decision on our own to apply for exhumation.
But do you agree that any death that occurs within the Republic as a result of an unlawful, reckless, or intentional conduct, any death that occurs in the Republic unlawfully and recklessly and or negligently or intentionally is an unnatural death which requires investigation by the law? Do you agree with that?
Justice, I do agree. I do agree.
Do you agree that all of these 118, now 141 deaths were deaths that occurred unlawfully? They occurred as a result of a commission or omission on the part of some state official.
Okay. If we have to go to the Ombudsman's report, yes, according to the Ombudsman's report, it is like,
Yes.
like that.
And they occurred because of reckless and, or on the Ombudsman's words, reckless and negligent conduct on the part of state officials.
We agree,
Yes.
Justice.
Do you therefore agree that all 141 ordinarily ought to be the subject of a judicial inquest?
Justice, I agree that all of them should be subjected to an inquest process to determine the exact cause of death in each and every
And
case.
then follows counsel's questions. What has the department done or doing to ensure that?
Yes. The department has, and you will excuse me if I repeat myself because the question repeats itself, Justice. The department has offered post-mortems to be done in each and every case since then. And it was unfortunate that this was only done in the latter months rather than before. And in each case, a post-mortem was, in other words, all cases were referred to forensic pathology services and awaited SAPS decision, and also, but families were also consulted in each and every case. And the department would cooperate with any process that is decided on jointly by the department, by the families and the family representatives, and also by organs of state like SAPS and NPA, if a decision is made to have post-mortems done on all 141.
Where was the
where
department
post-mortem was done.
and why didn't it act? I know you were not here then. From what you know and what you can infer from all the documentation, where was the department to prohibit the unlawful burial of its patients, or its former patients?
Yeah.
Now, from the time when mental health care users started dying because of the marathon project, why weren't there officials of the department to ensure proper and respectful burial of all these people? Do you know why?
Okay. Justice, I would not be able to speak for those who are not here, but I can only speak for the period that we, the MEC and myself, started coming into the picture in the middle of February.
But if you were there then, what would you have done, HOD? You would have made sure that you pay last respects
Yes.
to your patients, either by finding their families or arranging for proper documentation, making sure that their bodies are not kept in all variety of funeral parlors and so on. Wouldn't you have done that
Yes, I
for
agree.
for your former patients?
I agree definitely that that should have been done, Justice. And to demonstrate why I say so is that we immediately since February stopped all what they call proper burials. And that is the reason why we are still keeping and trying to trace the relatives of those that are, the 7 that I mentioned earlier that are still in our mortuaries. By law, you know, the law allows that it could have been happened before, but we have stopped. And we have gone to lengths, including Home Affairs and SAPS, fingerprinting and so on, to try and identify those that were not claimed. We have informed all the NGOs that are within, that we are contracted to, that no death will go unreported to us, to stop exactly that happening again. And with this process, we have managed to trace quite a number of families, and we are left with these 7. And we hope that this process will alert families who may have missing persons to
So your
assist us.
predecessor, I'm sorry, Doctor.
Yes.
I interrupted you, sorry. Finish.
Yes, Justice, it should not have happened that burials of that nature should happen.
And justice may not be had here, will probably not be had, because people were hurriedly buried, and there's no proper documentation to follow up on the lawfulness of their deaths, isn't it?
That is true, Justice.
Counsel.
Thank you, Justice. Dr. Kanoshi, did you convey your view that these deaths were the result of conduct that was unlawful and reckless or negligent? Did you convey that view to the SAPS when you handed the information over to them?
Maybe in those, not in those exact words, Counsel, but we said that these deaths need further investigation, and we agreed with them on that. Especially those that happened since February, to make sure, even where there was a natural disease process, because some of them, as I've said, had cancer, but also even those subjected to an inquest process, we did convey that to SAPS.
What I've been trying to put to you, Dr. Kanoshi, is that this is not a simple process like others may be, where the cause of death is known and where the cause of death is recorded as unnatural.
Yes.
This is, these are unusual circumstances. And in order for the SAPS to do its job properly, it has said that it requires the Department of Health to say to it that you suspect foul play. in their words. And so that's why I asked you the question as to whether you informed them of your view that these deaths are as a result of, in their words, foul play. And you're saying you did not do so.
We did not use those words.
You just said
to
they
that
need
effect.
investigation. But
Yes, Council. We may not have used the same words, but we said they need investigations to find out why they passed on, whether it was due to some of the neglect that our former life Esidimeni patients were subjected to, or not.
thanks, Dr. Knossi. We can leave it there. My next question then is about the post-mortem reports. Part of the terms of reference of this inquiry is to make information available to the arbitration. And the 26, however many number there are, post-mortem reports that are in existence, a request has been made for you to provide those reports to this process, to this hearing. Those reports have not been provided. Why is that?
The reports are in the possession of the SAPS, and I am told by law we have tried as a department to obtain the reports so that we could share them with families. But we have been told that the reports are should be held by law by the SAPS, and they hand them to the inquest process. So we despite numerous communication with SAPS, we have not, as a department, been able to obtain the reports. We have handed the matter to our legal team to also assist in the process. And it is true that we have struggled to obtain the reports, the final post-mortem reports from SAPS.
Well, who has them? We might have to subpoena them.
If
We know the exact person in whose custody they are. We might have to subpoena the SAPS. I don't know
yes.
how, if your loved one passes on and there's a post-mortem report, at a bare minimum, you want to read that. At a very bare minimum, what killed him or her, you want to know. So, HOD, we need the specific custodians of these reports, and I will cause a subpoena to be issued if they don't willingly come. Or you may arrange it with them so they come, then we don't have to be coercive about it.
Yes. Justice, I would fully support the ADR process, subpoenaing them, SAPS, to provide the reports. I would support that process.
Okay.
Besides which, it's quite important to the relationship of cooperation between your department and the SAPS that you have information.
Yes, yes.
And you're saying to us they have refused to provide that to you.
That's right. And that is why we've worked even with specific families to try and obtain the reports to assist them. And I must say we have failed in the process.
Dr. Knossi, if I can turn to, and this is the last set of last topic I'm going to explore.
I'm sorry, before you move off, Council, how do we ascertain the custodians of the report, or the particular office or level of office in the SAPS? I don't want this to fall in between the cracks. Who would give us certified copies of what they have in their files? If you don't have the details now, your counsel can find them, or your attorney, and make them available
Justice?
to
Yes.
the rest of the team.
Justice, if I may be permitted to come to the assistance of the hearing, there is correspondence which gives the details of the person who is in possession of those reports from the National Prosecuting Authority. There has been a correspondence which was exchanged from the attorneys on behalf of the government, making a request of those reports for purposes of making them available. But the response, if I can just read it for the record, in relation to such a request is as follows. As discussed during our previous meeting, most of the post-mortem reports are still outstanding, and we can only discuss the possibility of making the reports available once we have received all the reports and opinions. Currently, there are 21 dockets with the pathologist awaiting opinions and post-mortem reports. The investigating officers are in a better position to address you regarding the outstanding investigation and the possible time frame involved in completing same. And then it's signed, kind regards, G. van der Westhuizen, Senior Public Prosecutor, National Prosecuting Authority, Pretoria. If, I can make this available,
Yes,
perhaps, that will assist.
yes, please. You may proceed, Counsel.
Thank you, Justice Masaneke. Dr. Kanoshi, may I turn to recommendation 18
Thank you very much.
and the update on recommendation 18, which
Okay.
was provided to us yesterday? Recommendation 18 is in relation to the previous chair of the Mental Health Review Board, Ms. D. Masondo.
Yes.
The status update tells us that Ms. Masondo was placed on suspension on 22nd February 2017. An inquiry commenced on 22 March 2017, and we heard from you today that the presiding officer has now made a finding, and that finding is that she is not guilty. Is that correct?
That is so, Counsel. Okay.
Is it? But we're actually not sure what she is not guilty of, because we don't know what the allegations were in the report. Is that correct?
Counsel, when the matter was referred to for an inquiry, as the law provides, the referral for inquiry included the investigations, and she was to be investigated whether she has capacity to fully be a member of the Mental Health Review Board, and whether she is capable and qualified and in every person a perfect person to be holding that board, bearing in mind what the Ombudsman's report contained. Okay. And we have a copy, not here with me, but as Justice has said, we should provide it as record of this court. We can provide a copy of the decision of the person, the presiding officer, the senior counsel who handled the inquiry.
What do you intend to do beyond providing it to us with that report?
Counsel, we have said that, and we are, I'm repeating, we as a department are taking it on review. Okay.
On what basis?
On the basis that the allegations against Ms. Masondo were quite strong, and we don't, as a department, fully agree with the content of the decision and the rationale for the decision.
Dr. Kanoshi, can I ask you to have regard to page 1356 of the record? File,
Can somebody assist me?
I think it's file 3.
File 3, is it the same one? Okay. Page 1356.
It's right at the end of file 3, the last document in file 3, page 1356.
I found it.
Dr. Kanoshi, have you seen this news article before?
14,000. Council, I have not seen this news report before. Please.
The headline says 14,000 rand fee to transport body of patient. And what is contained in this report, and again, the reason, and let me explain. The reason I'm putting this to you is because I raised it yesterday with the Director General, and she informed us that you're the appropriate person to address questions to on this issue. The content of the news article tells us that Ms. Masondo operates a funeral parlor called African Queens of Africa, and that she was contacted by Dr. Manamela to provide transport services for the patients who are dying from life Esidimeni. In her words, on page 1357, she's quoted in the article to say the following: Manamela called me and told me they were having a crisis regarding many dead bodies of the mentally ill patients which the department was unable to transport. I said, since you have a crisis, I will assist you and arrange to transport some of the bodies. And then she tells us that she transferred the body of Josiah, and she was paid 14,000 rand. Were you aware of these allegations?
Council, this is the first time I'm aware of this newspaper clip.
But the content,
but then,
the issue.
Yes, yes, Council. I've been, one of the reasons why we, as a department, are referring the matter for further for review, the decision that she's not guilty, is exactly that there has been a rumor, which I have not, which I only heard recently, by the way, that she or one family member of hers runs a funeral parlor that was involved in transporting of bodies of our former life Esidimeni patients. And I am not sure whether the senior counsel who looked at the matter was aware of that, but we will make, we have made a decision that to refer the matter to Gauteng Auditing Services, which do forensic investigations for all the departments within Gauteng provincial government to investigate further. I've also discussed this with our, but this is in recent days, with our head of legal services, and our head of legal services has spoken to Ms. Masondo and asked her, and she said she does not run a funeral parlor, but one of her family members does that. So that is the matter that will be investigated further to confirm this. But if this article has to be taken as it is, then it's quite damning, and I agree with you Council.
Dr. Kanoshi, even though there may be other investigations that you've sent this to your auditing people for further investigation, it's been 8 months since Ms. Masondo was placed on suspension. It's been 8 months, and there isn't any proper finding against her. Was this information placed before the presiding officer who was conducting the disciplinary inquiry?
This information, the information that she may be related to somebody who runs a funeral parlor and that might have been involved, only came after the matter was referred to the presiding officer who handled the matter. And Ms. Masondo, when she was suspended, she is not on pay at all, so she's out of the department. And in fact, a new board has been appointed by the MEC so that there's no void left with the suspension of the the previous mental health review board. So a new board has been suspended whilst the matter is dealt with procedurally, but they are not being paid at all, and that is the reason why we have taken this decision, which, as I said, we only received within the last month or so, towards end of September, for review. Just
Well, the question was,
and
it's 8 months, Doctor, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
It's 8 months since Ms. Masondo was suspended, and nothing appears to have happened in relation, for instance, to an accusation as damning as that.
Yes. Justice, I haven't seen this article before, and I don't think it had come to their attention. It's not printed in a local newspaper that we read here, so, but I haven't seen this, but I have heard this rumor, and that is for the reason why we have referred this matter for further investigation.
Dr. Kanoshi, who is responsible for the implementation of the recommendations by the Ombudsman?
It's a whole department, myself and the MEC heading the department.
It's a collective responsibility.
Yes, MEC. Some of the recommendations are directed at the minister, others at the provincial government, and others at Gauteng Department of Health in particular.
But does the buck stop with any one person?
Difficult question to answer, Council. Yes, one of those who are responsible to make sure that the recommendations are implemented, and I've related how we have handled with the recommendations so far.
I put it to you, Dr. Kanoshi, with regret, I must say, that it does not appear that the implementation of the recommendations is being followed with the vigor and fervor that we are led to believe. And I'm saying this to you because part of the problem in the previous administration, the erstwhile officials sitting in your seat as the head of department and others, had the same approach, which is it's a collective responsibility. And the problem with that approach is that nobody then takes responsibility. And in this case of the implementation of the recommendations, there has been a very dedicated and committed follow-up by the representatives of the families to assist the department and the officials who have since taken office to implement the recommendations. And in this regard, I ask you to please turn to page 1419 of the record, which is in file 4.
This is 300.
One, four, one.
1419.
Thank you.
Have you located it?
Yes, I have, Council.
It's a letter from Section 27 to MEC Gwen Ramakgopa. It's copied to Ms. Precious Matsoso. We put this letter to the Director General yesterday, and she advised us to rather direct the question to you. It's a letter dated 8 March 2017, which is before the disciplinary proceedings against Ms. Masondo commenced, according to your report. On 8 March 2017, we brought it to the attention of the Gauteng Department of Health that there are very serious charges and allegations against Ms. Masondo. If you may turn, please, to page 1423. Paragraph 17. It states, we note also that Ms. Masondo owns a funeral service that was engaged to transport deceased former residents of life Esidimeni. Please indicate whether Ms. Masondo is being investigated for contraventions of the law and the terms and conditions of her employment for her multiple overlapping roles in the life Esidimeni matter. In other words, it was brought to your attention well before the commencement of the inquiry against Ms. Masondo. Why did you not include it in the terms of reference for the disciplinary inquiry?
Council, the issues, matters related to mental health review board are not dealt with in the office of the accounting office of the HOD, but are dealt with at the level of the MEC. And I think the letter was correctly addressed and to the MEC. So I would have to find out whether it was included in the terms of reference for the senior counsel who was appointed to look into this or not. But this letter was not brought to my attention at that time.
So this is the problem, Dr. Konoshi, is the collective responsibility. So we write a letter to the MEC on a subject, and it's a very long and detailed letter. I'm just referring to this particular aspect. But we write a letter to the department, rather the legal representatives on behalf of the clients write a letter to the department saying, here is all the information we have, here is how we can assist you, and we would like to know whether you are going to include this in the process going forward, which is very important to ensure that those recommendations are properly and diligently implemented. We have been, and your legal representatives here have been at pains to stress that it is a tragedy what took place. But rest assured, the government is now putting its shoulder to the wheel. And it doesn't help for the families to hear that, oh, sorry, this was not addressed to me, it was addressed to the MEC.
okay.
It's in relation to the implementation of the recommendations in the Ombuds report. Do you agree that you have responsibility for
Yes.
the implementation of those recommendations?
Yes, Council, I've taken full responsibility and continue to do so. I think this, as I've indicated, we regard this as so serious that we as a department have not accepted the actual decision of the person who was heading the inquiry. We should also bear in mind that the law as it is at the moment precludes the MEC from summarily dismissing any member of the Mental Health Review Board. And the MEC has received a legal opinion on this and on doing so. And she was advised that she cannot do so. She has to go through the inquiry process.
Dr.
And that
Kanoshi?
process is the one that has landed us where we are now. And as a department, we have not accepted the decision, and we're taking it on review.
There's nothing summary about this process. There's been 8 months in which what you read out as the charge that the presiding officer is meant to investigate was whether she has a capacity to continue in her position in the Mental Health Review Board, whether she's capable of fulfilling the functions. It doesn't seem to me to be very precisely formulated and to include this kind of an allegation. Would you agree?
I do agree, Council. I do.
No. How long do you envisage the next phase of the process of the disciplinary of Ms. Masondo to take?
Council, I can't predict legal processes, but I would hope that it is done as swiftly as possible. And we would do anything that would assist that process that is finalized as quickly as possible.
Will you be placing the information in relation to Ms. Masondo that is in this record, which goes beyond the news article, I should add? Will you be placing that information before the next panel?
Yes, we will do so, Council.
Thank you, Dr. Kanoshi. My final 2 questions. Have you been able to determine what was the cause of, or let me put it differently. Have you been able to determine why the former MEC and the former HOD and the senior officials chose this course of action? Have you been able to determine why they saw fit to terminate the contract and move so many people with such haste?
Council, I have not been able to determine that. And I think, not for lack of trying, but I have not been able to determine exactly that, and I can't vouch to it.
Would you agree that it cannot be a justification that this was a cost-saving measure?
Council, I don't know whether that was the reason why this project was undertaken, but it wasn't a cost. No cost savings were realized.
In fact, we are told that not only were there no savings realized, but that in order to fix the problem, patients had to be sent back to Life Esidimeni, and this time at a higher cost than before. So in fact, not only were there no cost savings, it cost more than it did in the past. Is that correct?
That is correct, Council. The new contract with Life Esidimeni and with Clinics Healthcare, because they're not the only ones who are taking care of our patients now, I was part of those negotiations. And one of the reasons why the charge is slightly higher than in the past was that we have put more stringent conditions and safer conditions for Life Esidimeni to provide to us and to our patients. And because of the higher specifications that we have put in our contract with them, it does cost more, just to ensure that our patients are there safe, in a safer place than even when they were in Life Esidimeni initially. And we are confident that that is the case at the moment.
Have you done a calculation of what the actual cost of all of this has been?
Council, we are in the process of doing that, and it is not easy, I must say. But we will eventually get there to calculate exactly how much it has cost the department.
Once you do, will you make that available to this hearing?
We will make it available to the public because financial statements of the department are public statements, and we will make it available in that way.
Thank you, Dr. Kanoshi.
Thank you.
Did you inquire whether a medical opinion was sought, whether the department sought expert medical opinion to advise on the move and how to do a transfer, mass transfer of patients in this way, particularly mentally ill patients?
Council, I'm aware that there were people with psychiatry qualifications who were part of the process on and off. Because I was not closely involved in the matter, I'm not sure to what extent the experts were involved in this matter.
Finally, did you inquire as to whether a legal opinion was sought as to how to conduct a mass transfer of this nature and still protect and respect the rights of the mental health care users?
No, Council, I'm not aware whether legal opinion was sought on this kind of project.
Did you inquire as to whether they sought advice, legal advice?
Not legal advice, no.
No.
I did not. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kanoshi.
Thank you, Council.
And was there, let me put it this way, we've been promised a budget of your department for 2014, 2015. To 2016, in order to see what kind of money you had to look after or to provide mental health care. I don't know if the previous witness had alerted you to that.
Council, this information will be provided to the hearing.
Yeah.
If not today, but definitely by Monday, it'll be handed to our legal representatives who will deal with it and will submit it appropriately.
Thank you so much, that's helpful. But was the department in any financial crunch at the time of the marathon project?
Justice, the Department of Health has been under severe financial pressure for the past 5 to 6 years, mainly because of the demand on the services that it provides outstripping the budget allocations that the department has been getting. And that is what has resulted in massive accruals above 4 billion rand that the department was faced with even at the beginning of this financial year. So
4 billion would be what kind of accrual?
This is the amount of debt invoices from suppliers and contractors that the department still have to pay for previous years that it was faced with come April this year when the financial year started. So it is true that the department has been and is under financial pressure up to now.
And when the marathon project was devised, the crunch was also still there, isn't it? The department had a lot of debts, which you now say have run up to 4 billion.
That is true, Justice. The department has been under pressure because of the increasing number of people who come to Gauteng from, not only from other provinces all flocking to Gauteng, but also from across the borders of South Africa. The number of people from foreigners and also people from other provinces, all of them needing services from Gauteng Department of Health, and the increasing population, which is said to be increasing at the rate of 2.5% per annum, the budget allocations have not kept up to the increasing number of people in the province.
The last thing, Dr. Kinosha, I know from reading and your role together with the National DG and the DG in the Premier's office has been enormous ever since you've come as HOD around this matter. And you've been part of the cleaning sort of team in the aftermath of this, coming from another institution. But from the questions that were put to you, just to wrap up, there's an incipient criticism that we will never get to the root of the cause and will never get proper redress. That was the trend of the questions. In other words, that the team, even new team, may not get us to the kind of redress that unlawful death normally demands. What do you say to that? And the opportunity to tell us about your own commitment and the commitment of your department.
Justice, I think in response, I should say to the hearing here and to the families as well, that it wasn't easy getting into this department in February. If one can imagine getting into a department where, especially after the Ombuds report, that suddenly you were filled with lots and lots of patients who, even at that stage during the month of February, we had to take food from patients in our hospitals to some of the NGOs to feed them because they didn't have food for the evening. And some of them had not been bathed for days. And this was in February of this year. And we had to close them, we had to feed them, we had to, even in the NGOs, at the cost of state, just to save lives. So there has been a process of saving lives. So the department concentrated mainly on saving lives, and moving 850 people was not easy. 820 people was not easy in 3 months. We had teams of psychiatrists, EMS, our EMS, we had to get additional cars from GG to augment our emergency medical services. The help of the families and the involvement of the families helped a lot, and they know the story of what we went through, working through the night on a number of occasions. So as a department, it was mainly about stabilizing the situation. And to an extent where now, if you look at the trend of deaths per month, it has shrunken to well below even the levels it was before when people were at Esidimeni in the last 4 or 5 years. We have looked at the figures, and that was our main intention, to save lives and to stabilize the situation and to make sure that we are sure of where each and every one person is. It was not an easy one. Getting into a department where at that time there were no accurate records at all. So the kind of figures that you saw and we presented today, it was not easy getting to those figures at all. And that's why I still say that we are prepared, that we should put them, subject them to an audit process just to make sure that they are perfect. But just compiling those figures was from nothing, was not easy. So punishing other people was not the immediate impulse when we came in. It was more to save lives, and I think we have done a lot in that respect. And now that we are working with other organs of state, we can get on with the process of finding reasons why it was done and the justification for the process and any people who are liable or not. We can now put our teeth into it. But it was not the immediate concern in the first 3 months, 4 months of our being in there. And there is testimony to that, even from some of the families who were closely involved with us and continue to be closely involved with us. We are grateful.
Thank you, Dr. Kenoshi. We're going to take the adjournment. It's 1:30. Let me give an idea of what's going to happen ahead of you. It always helps to have an idea of what the road is likely to look like ahead. We're going to have questions by Counsel for Legal Aid, followed immediately by Advocate Groenewald, who's representing 3 of the deceased families, and then Advocate Nguchana, who is an appointed evidence leader, and or his colleague, and then a re-examination. So basically, you still have about 3 people who are going to be talking to you, and they're going to have a re-examination. And that would be the end, and I suspect that would be the end for today. It's been a hard grind week, so you're probably going to be our last witness, unless counsel vehemently objects. Then we sit up to 8 p.m. But otherwise, after you, there's going to be the end of the hearing, even for those who are here, to anticipate that after you, we'll go and catch our breath, and think about a very hard week, Very well, we're going to adjourn now, 1:30. We resume 2:30 here. We are adjourned.